This is why your budget keeps failing, and I'm going to give you 6 steps to fix it for good. You know you should budget, so why does it feel so difficult to stick to? And let's be real, budgeting isn't just about the math. If it was, we'd all be financial wizards. The real reason most budgets fail has nothing to do with the numbers. It's all about your approach and your psychology around budgeting itself. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly why your budget is failing. And I'm going to give you 6 practical tips you can use today to make sure your budgeting is working for you so you can achieve your financial goals. And here's what we're going to cover. First, you need to understand the psychology behind why budgets fail. I'm going to talk to you about why it's important to set goals before you start cutting expenses. Then we're going to get into finding a budgeting style that really fits with your personality so that you'll stick with it. Then we're going to talk about using Dr. Brad's version of the 50-30-20 budgeting rule. My version's better, and you'll thank me later. I'm also going to talk about how you can leverage technology to automate your budgeting success. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to hack the emotional side of budgeting, which is very, very important if you want to be successful. But hey, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Brad Klontz, national best-selling author and the world's leading expert on the psychology of money and wealth. My mission is to help you rewire your brain and to establish the financial habits you need to achieve your financial goals. If you're ready to transform your relationship with money, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video with someone you care about. Now let's get right into it, but I want to mention that this video is for educational purposes only. It's not financial advice. Always consult with a financial professional about your specific needs before you take action. Now let's get into it. Step number 1. Understanding the psychology behind budgeting failure. What if I told you that your brain is secretly sabotaging your budget? It's true, and I'll tell you why. Here's the deal. Your brain is wired to hate budgeting, so don't feel bad. You're not alone. You're not crazy. Only a crazy person loves budgeting. Budgets tend to fail because we feel like it's restricting us. Psychologically, it's a terrible emotional experience, so we're not going to approach it that way. It turns out that our brains are wired to resist anything that feels like scarcity, especially if it's self-imposed. This is called a loss aversion bias, and we all have it. We fear losing things more than we value gaining things. That's why when you tell yourself, I can't afford to eat out, your brain starts to resist you and it sabotages you. Suddenly, all you can think about is carry out. All you can think about is getting appetizers when you go out to eat or an expensive drink. Does that sound familiar? Here's the solution, and it's a very powerful psychological trick. Stop calling it a budget. Seriously, think of it as a spending plan. A budget feels like restriction. It feels like a diet. It feels like deprivation. And when you go on a diet, if you've had this experience, you start to crave salty, sugary, fatty food. That's all you can think about. Not only that, your metabolism slows down. Your entire body starts to rebel against this whole concept of starving yourself. And the same thing happens when we think about it in terms of budgeting. But a spending plan is very different. It feels entirely different than a budget where you set about cutting out all the fun in your life. How miserable. A spending plan, however, is where you sit down and you decide what you want to spend your money on. And then you put plan and action and techniques in place to make sure you're spending money in a way that's consistent with what really matters to you deep down. That's where you sit down and you make a conscious decision about where you want your money to go that fits with your values and what matters most to you. It's all about conscious control, not about sacrifice. So step 1, don't think about it as a budget where you're restricting things. Think about it as a spending plan where you're putting your money where it matters most to you. Step number 2, set goals before you cut. Have you ever tried budgeting and you feel like you're cutting expenses for no good reason? That's because you skipped the most essential first step, and that is establishing your financial goals. Why are you doing this to begin with? The mistake that most people make when they approach budgeting is they start slashing expenses without a clear and exciting vision about why you're doing this. And that's where setting specific financial goals is so incredibly important. Cutting expenses without having goals is kind of like trying to lose weight without the knowledge of why this would even benefit you, or the vision of how you would look better or feel better or live longer. Without that exciting vision, why would you go on a diet? It makes no sense. And the same thing is true with budgeting. Without an exciting vision of your financial goals and why it matters to you, only a crazy person would go about cutting out expenses in their life. The goal is to think about what really matters to you. The goal is to then use that to create intense, exciting motivation in your life. If you don't have a clear vision of what you're working towards, cutting out stuff in your life feels utterly pointless. So here's the solution. Set your financial goals first before you start budgeting. Do you want to create an emergency fund? Do you want to pay off $10,000 in debt? Do you want to have a vacation fund? Do you want to own a home someday? Are you looking towards a new car in the future? Once you know what these goals are, you can then automate your money so that you can achieve them. And you do that before you start making cuts. So here's how to set those goals in 3 simple steps. First, identify your top financial goals. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5, or maybe it's 10. I'll tell you this, the more financial goals you have, the wealthier you're going to be. Step number 2, set up accounts in those goals' names and set up automatic transfers of money each pay period into those separate accounts. And then step number 3, then we're going to move on to budgeting, setting up a spending plan for all the rest of the expenses in your life. Things that don't matter quite as much as those exciting financial goals. When you do this, you no longer feel deprived. You no longer are living in a world of scarcity. You're feeling empowered because you have set your agenda towards what matters most to you, and you're making progress towards those goals. When your spending starts to align with your values and what matters most, it starts to feel really good, and you're going to notice that your financial stress starts to decrease. Step number 3, it's important to understand why traditional approaches to budgeting doesn't work for most people. If you think budgeting is a one-size-fits-all, it's the fastest way to fail. So let's find a plan that works for you. Budgets fail because they don't match your personality style. Most approaches to budgeting is a one-size-fits-all, but personal finance is indeed personal, and you need to have an approach that fits with you. What works for a super frugal spreadsheet-loving person isn't going to work for somebody who might be motivated by more lifestyle goals. So you have to find your budgeting style, and I'm going to give you 3 different ideas on how to approach it. Number 1, the spreadsheet guru. You love numbers, you're detail oriented. There's nothing more exciting to you than pulling up a spreadsheet and starting to work with the math. If this is you, try zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting is great for everyone. And essentially what you do is you assign a home for each and every dollar that comes into your life. There's nothing worse than having a checking account full of money, because at the end of the month, at the end of the year, you'll zero it out, whether you have $1,000 in it, 10,000 or 100,000. If you don't assign a home for each dollar, it's going to melt away. So with zero-based budgeting on that spreadsheet, you're going to make sure that every dollar is accounted for. And remember, the first dollars that are coming into your life, you're going to pay yourself first. They're going to go towards those goals that you established in the previous step. Number 2 is the visual learner. You learn best by seeing things and by touching things. You're kinesthetic. For those people, think about the envelope system. You decide at the beginning of the month how much money you're going to be spending in specific categories. And usually these are discretionary categories, things that get you in trouble. For example, how much money you're going to spend going out to eat. At the beginning of the month, you allocate a certain amount of money into that envelope and you only spend from that envelope. The third is the lazy saver. And I'll be honest, this is me. I don't love tracking expenses. I don't love working with spreadsheets and paying that close attention. So what I do is I harness the power of technology, and I'm going to talk about that in more detail in a further step. I will use apps that track my spending for me, and then I can go back and look, see where my money went. I can also set up strategies from the start, allocating certain amounts of money going to certain areas, and when it goes above that within my budget, I'll get an email or an alert. There are many approaches to budgeting. The important thing is to not beat yourself up if you're not great with spreadsheets and if you don't like tracking every dollar. There is a solution for you, and it's really important that you use one that fits with your psychology. Step number 4, we're going to use the 50-30-20 budgeting hack, but I have my own version that I think is even better than the other ones you've perhaps seen. Do you hate tracking every single dollar? If so, there's a better way, and it only takes 3 numbers: 50, 30, 20. This really is one of the best budgeting philosophies out there, the 50-30-20 rule. It's simple, it's effective, and it doesn't require you to track every single dollar. Here's the breakdown. 50% of your money goes to your needs, your rent, your food, your bills. Now I say needs because quite often we will put things in the need category that upon closer examination are more like wants. So be careful with the needs category. The second category is the future you. And this is the 30%. I've always strived to save and invest 30% of every dollar I make. Now, some personal financial experts will say 10%. I don't know about you, but I wanted to become wealthier and I wanted to get there faster. So I prioritized this future me over wants. So whether you're doing 30% like I did, or 20%, or 10, or even more, this is such a critically important category if you want financial freedom. So make sure to prioritize this. And then the last part is the 20%. This is the wants. This is fun, entertainment, travel. This could even be like saving for a fun purchase, a vacation home, for example, or a new car, whatever it is you want. These are the wants. They're not the needs. And you've already taken care of the future you by prioritizing paying yourself first. And this is what you're spending on after you've already taken care of the 30%, the future you, where you want that financial freedom. So this is the fun category. And that 20% category is important because having some fun will help build in motivation for you. And you can avoid something called frugality fatigue, where you can live in a life of scarcity because you're so focused on the future and make yourself miserable. It is important to spend money and enjoy some of it now. Critically important, or you will find a way to sabotage yourself subconsciously. Step number 5 is harnessing technology to automate your success. So for this step, we're looking into technology because we want to automate our success. If you're struggling to stick to a budget, definitely find some technology to put to use to make it easier. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the tools out there. And if you're not using a budgeting app in 2025, you're making things way harder than they need to be. Here are a few of the more popular ones. This isn't an endorsement. I don't have a relationship with any of these particular apps, but look into something that can automate some of this to make your life easier. Why not? YNAB, which is You Need a Budget app. Look into Rocket Money. Look into Empower. There are apps out there that will automate a lot of this, where you can set up your various accounts. The information flows in there. You can set up budgets. You can set up alerts. You can cancel subscriptions that you're not even aware about. These apps can be incredibly powerful. Definitely use them if you're like me and you want to be a little bit lazy and you don't want to count every penny. So your challenge is to pick an app today and set it up. It'll take you less than 10 minutes. This small action, huge results for you when it comes to budgeting. Step number 6, we are going to harness the emotional side of budgeting. If you think budgeting is just about numbers, think again. Your emotions are running the show. Budgeting isn't just about the numbers or the math. It's deeply emotional. We all have money scripts, subconscious beliefs about money that can impact our budgeting. Here are some of the common money scripts that keep people stuck when it comes to budgeting. Number 1, I'll never have enough, so why bother budgeting? Or 2, I work hard. I deserve to spend on anything I want. Or number 3, I don't budget because I'm just bad with money. These are just thoughts. They're just beliefs. They don't mean anything. Rewire your money scripts. Your financial past does not define your financial future. It's okay to start small. It's okay to build momentum as you go. That's how most people become successful in this area. We're not born knowing this stuff, but you are in control of your financial future. Your money doesn't control you. You are the one who has the power, and you can do this. So here is my challenge to you. Now that you know the psychology behind why budgets fail, now that I've given you some ideas on how to start putting a budget to work for you, this is what I challenge you to do. First, pick a budgeting approach that fits for you. Second, set your financial goals, the ones that matter the most to you, and start automating money movement to those goals. Even if you can only do $1 a month, set up those separate accounts. Take money from your checking account each month. Automate it towards those goals. Super important. And then last, let me know in the comments, what is your biggest challenge to budgeting? Let's get this financial freedom together. I believe in you. We can do it. If this helped you, hit the like, subscribe, and share this video with someone you care about. And I'll see you next time.